Good morning. It is June 29th. I'm Sabah Hussein. I'm the Director of Operations Support in School Finance. I have with me Adi from AzEDS and Irvin from AzEDS and Monica and Irene from School Finance. And I'll be stalling for a second to do housekeeping to give people an opportunity to refresh and get online. If you haven't done this before, the screen you're looking at looks like a YouTube video, but I'm not going to be looking at the comment section. Instead, the top edge of the video says ask a question at Google Slides YQM93E. That loads a separate screen that I can look at, and your questions are ordered by people's agreeing with you or urgency. There's a little thumbs up. You can either load that in a separate tab in the same browser or use a separate browser. It will show your Google login though, so if you have an embarrassing, if you're a big fan of Vin Diesel and you don't want people to know about it, you can log in anonymously. And it won't show, but if you do have a question that's very specific to your LEA, I might ask you to identify yourself in some way so my team can reach out and help. Our only plan today is to walk through the calendar feature, and so that's what we have a few slides, and we'll actually demo it if we can, and then kind of talk about some of the rollover things that are happening over the weekend. But there will be time for Q&A after. So I'm sorry if some of this you know already. Oh, no, sorry. AzEDS communications is pretty clean. There are 3 primary channels AzEDS uses to communicate to you. At the top of the system status page is a little blurb that shows up for small, urgent things that don't impact a lot. So those will just light up if it's, but those usually coincide with something like a red flag that'll text you if it's a larger and more urgent notification. For example, there were some planned outages last night, so I got a text when they started. Then there's also the AzEDS update blog, which you can sign up to get emails, or you can just navigate there and read previous updates. It's pretty great. School Finance and ADE is primarily tasked with dispersing state aid to school districts and charter districts, which relies mostly on student data, but there are other data elements that feed payments. So if you email my team, it's the SF analyst team at az.gov, or call us. We should be able to help you with a lot of your data issues. Okay, so the hot topic of the day for me is calendar. So I'm going to start all the way back at the beginning to quick show you how we got here. So if you go to our website, it is www.az.gov/finance. We put up a hot topic to discuss the new calendar feature in AzEDS. There have been a couple memos recently, a few weeks ago with just detail on instructional calendar in general, and then this past week more specifically to explain how to certify calendars. So that's basically the topics we're covering today. But how to get there was on our homepage. The hot topic was right here at the top, and then you could link to the memos from there. Sorry, I'm watching the video is a little bit slower than I'm talking. All the way back to the beginning, ADE has been updating some of our systems. In previous years, you would have accessed our student data collection system, which was called AzEDS via Common Logon. We've been upgrading and modernizing all of our systems, so the new way to access our student data collection system is through ADE Connect. One of the really great things that you get from switching to ADE Connect is you manage permissions yourself, meaning there's somebody at your LEA who's the entity administrator, and they can assign you the permissions needed. So for example, if I log into the AzEDS portal, I can pull up ADM reports. And I can do that because the entity administrator where I work gave me permissions to base level reports in AzEDS, but also SPED reports and ADM reports. So I'm going to quick show you ADE Connect for me. Oh, never mind. There we go. So this is what ADE Connect looks like for me. It shows that I'm associated with the Arizona Department of Education. And next to the place where I work is a little picture of a man, and that's the link that shows me the people at my agency that can assign my permissions. So if for some reason when you go to AD Connect you don't see the AzEDS portal, you're going to look for the people who show up when you click this, and they will help assign your permissions. And then how do you get to AD Connect? I'll go back to our homepage really quick. So that's azed.gov, and across the top menu, our common logon is still there because some of our legacy applications are still in common logon, but AD Connect is right there in the first menu. If you haven't interfaced with AzEDS before, then you haven't seen my beautiful slide to explain it. But this is how do student data relate to school finance data and you. The man all the way at the left of the screen is to signify an LEA. I'm assuming that's the listener here today, so that's going to be you. The computer you're holding is an AzEDS certified student information system. You do need a student information system to be able to interface with the API. So API is just a term like USB. This one is the application program interface. This is the interface that writes to AzEDS, and the certified vendors each have a student information system that you could purchase to interface with AzEDS. Once data pass through the API, you can look at transaction reports to see what's been processed or not. And then they land in kind of reports where you can verify what's landed, things like a STUD 10 or a STUD 72. Those are verification reports. They just show you up to the minute what has made it to AzEDS. So if you submit at 8 in the morning and you're submitting 20,000 students, in theory, if you pull a STUD 10 every 5 minutes, you might see more students every time you pull it. Then every night we copy data to go to Integrity and ACE. So any reports that start with Integ or ADM, those ones are coming from a database right next to the verification databases, and those will have integrity results and ADM results on them. So the vertical lines there are to show actual processes. The arrow is there to indicate that when I start going to state aid payments, I leave AzEDS and I push the data using a process to actually move it to another system. Our APOR and CHAR are our state aid payment systems, and they are outside of AzEDS, but they have a system that ties them together. I wanted to quick walk you through what happens at a fiscal year rollover. Your key and secret for your SIS to interface with AzEDS stay the same. You just have a different URL for each fiscal year. So somebody at your LEA has already received a communication from the AzEDS team describing the new fiscal year's URL. If nobody at your LEA is talking about prepping for rollover, I know on the AzEDS blog there is a post that describes the fiscal year 19 URL. You might be that person. It's on the AzEDS blog. But there we go. So LEA Calendar was an application that we used prior to AzEDS for collecting instructional calendars to verify student data. You used to access it through Common Logon, and you would manually enter instructional calendars for ADE to use for student data. Now that we're moving instructional calendars into AzEDS, they'll be collected via the API through your SIS, which means the SIS vendors were all certified back in March. They worked with Irvin pretty much every day in March, and they practiced posting data and deleting data and changing it. All of the SIS vendors were certified in March for calendars, and they've had between then and now to continue to practice with LEAs in a different environment to continue submitting and calendar. Another difference between LEA Calendar and AzEDS is the way you describe a calendar to us. So in LEA Calendar, we asked you to summarize the calendar by choosing the days of weeks it'll be operating and tell us the first day and the last day. And then any outliers, you would put specific things on those days. For AzEDS Calendar, you may not see the transaction themselves, but you are sending a descriptor for each individual date. So when you submit to AzEDS, first you're going to submit the track itself, and a track is described using the submitting LEA, the school ID, and a track number. And then a track is also described with a start date, end date, and planned instructional dates. Then there's a separate table with events on it. For each track, you'll submit dates and descriptors. Your SIS knows how to do this. I'm sorry, I haven't previewed any individual SIS to see what their UI looks like. So what I'm describing are the actual transactions that go to AzEDS, not an action that you need to take by hand. In theory, the SIS will have covered these transactions. And so just to show you the difference, I'm not going to be asking for you to describe what days of the week that you're operational and beginning and end date. Instead, I'm going to ask you to describe each day and what those days of the calendar are. My slide got stretched. Anyway, I chose an example. So there you go. The Monday before Thanksgiving you would call an instructional day. Then the Thursday of Thanksgiving can be marked Thanksgiving Day. I chose the day after Thanksgiving to be an out-of-session day. So there's descriptors for each of the days, and we walk through them. Another difference between the LEA calendar and the AzEDS calendars is there were no overt business logic checks immediately visible to you when you entered a calendar in Common Logon. In AzEDS calendar, once you synced into the new fiscal year and your calendar syncs, you'll see calendar integrity running it every night. When you finished entering the LEA calendar, you did see a summary that showed a calculated 100th day before. We still have that in AzEDS, it just looks a little different this time. So eventually we'll demo that so you can see it. But functionally, it's still very much the same. It's calculating a 40th day and calculating a 100th day, then it's using those instructional calendar tracks to validate student data, and then eventually using it to calculate ADM on student data. The calendars can be edited from the first day of the fiscal year collection, which for this year is going to be July 1, through the end of 8/31. Then after that, you would need a calendar change request form and work with my school finance team to change anything after that. For processing in AzEDS, we've planned a set of calendar integrity rules, and I'll walk through those in a minute, and then one membership integrity rule. That one membership integrity rule confirms that the track that a student is uploaded to is passing integrity and has been certified by a representative of your LEA. So it's a pretty brief rule, but it's just making sure that your calendar is a valid calendar before it starts running student data on it. I summarized the calendar integrity rules. Broadly, each track date should be within the fiscal year, and then each track date should be within the declared track. Then track dates, begin and end dates should be instructional days. That way you don't have to send me 365 days. You can just send me reasonable instructional days. There is a statute that describes holidays, so we included those as integrity rules. Then there is a check for fall break and spring break, just making sure that you don't use multiple spring breaks all year long. It's not a requirement that you have a spring break. And then checks for days in the track, and that there should be at least one descriptor for each date and not multiple descriptors for each date. But I'll quick show you where you can see the rules in detail. So if you've been to our homepage before, from here I chose Data and Technology AzEDS, and that got me to a page where I chose AzEDS reference. And here on the AzEDS reference page, I think I've zoomed in a little too much. There we go. Here on the AzEDS reference page, they've added instructional calendar rules, and that shows you all 20 rules in detail. This coming weekend, and actually a little bit last night, we've been prepping to roll over the system to prep for the new year. So one thing you will have seen or are going to see is The LEA calendar in Common Logon for 2019 was deactivated. The system status page for AzEDS is going to begin displaying the new API, and when Adi demos it, he'll show you what that looks like. But essentially, when an API is available or not available, there's a little indicator to show whether it's open or closed. That's helpful in this time period when there'll be 2 fiscal years open at a time, but it'll also be helpful during 9/15s. The drop-downs on the AzEDS portal will start to default to fiscal year 19. That means if you're trying to pull a report and it's blank and you don't know why, quick check the drop-down to see if you're pulling data you haven't submitted yet, but that's what'll be up there. And then the last 2 new things that are going to show up over the weekend are the calendar menu across the top ribbon and the calendar reports down the left side of the reports page. And they're asterisks because they'll show up if you have permission. So that's what you'll need your entity administrator for. It's pretty easy to find the AzEDS calendar roles and assign them to yourselves, but there's a viewer, there's a certifier, and both of them can show up. Both of those permissions give you the menu and the reports. Oop, that's all I have, so I'll give you Adi to demo it really quick. Sorry, I'm skimming the questions to see if there are any. No questions that'll prevent a demo. Where do we leave the demo? Here you go.
All right. So on July 1st, for fiscal year 2019, we will have a system status page which Saba mentioned about, which will show you the REST API.
Zoom in a little?
Yeah, sure. It will have the status for REST API and calendar as well. So it's just a test environment, so let it load for a second.
That's a little more than a second. There's always a different technical difficulty on a Friday. There we go.
All right. So this is how you will see calendar submission is available on July 1st. And it will be part of the integrity process. On July 1st in the evening, after we start the integrity with the nightly job, you will see the entry here for calendar. And let's go to the calendar menu. So this is the new menu we will have for calendar. Tell me if you want to zoom in.
No, it's lagging behind what you're saying by about 1.5 seconds.
Okay. So this is the calendar UI where we have option to select LEA, school ID, school CTDS, and school name. We have all the tracks that you submitted and number of instructional days to define the track. And there's this box to certify all the calendars that you can see here. And there is one certify button for each track as well. So you can bulk certify all the tracks, or you can choose to certify each one of them. Let's go to the view calendar. All right. And also we have these entries here where you can see up to 100 tracks that you submitted. If you have access for more than like multiple LEAs and we have a lot of tracks, you can see them on the page by choosing the number of entries you want to see on the page, right? So let's go to the view calendar.
No, 7. It's here. It's written in front of me and I forgot. I'm sorry.
Oh, for view, I have one more. So let's use that.
Nice one.
Yeah. So if you want to view the track that you submitted, you can click on this hyperlink which says track 1. For now, for the test environment, we only have one track, so I'll just click on it. This is how the view calendar looks like. We have a lot of details here. Yeah, thank you. So we will have fiscal year, the track description, LEA selected, and the school for the track. And then we have this little toggle here, which shows you pre-integrity calendar data and the post-integrity calendar data. So let's say you submitted something, and then in the evening this integrity ran, and calendar will be passed or failed. And if you submit something before integrity run, there will be some difference. So to see the difference in the calendar, you can choose to select post-integrity or pre-integrity calendar data. And it will,
So if I submitted for the first time July 1st,
right,
and I have two schools, so I have two tracks, and both of them failed integrity, if on July 2nd I was submitting,
right,
this would be a feature to use July 2nd to show integrity results last night compared to what I submitted midday.
right. And if you want to see it side by side, it will show you the difference. So these are the dates and pre-integrity and post-integrity event times. If there is a mismatch, it will show in the red color. I don't have it
Like
in
something that I've
test.
changed midday.
Right.
But since this is a QA, we haven't submitted anything this morning.
Yeah, right. And then we have a declare begin date and end date. When you create a track and you define the start date and end date for the track, it will show up over here. And declare instructional days for the track. Uh, Submitted instructional days and non-instructional days are the counts which you actually submitted. So these are the declared ones versus the actual ones. You'll see calendar like calendar. It has a lot of legends we used to specify the date and the event that you submitted. So you see this little corner, the rounded corner for the start date and for the end date as well. If it is not instructional day, the first day is not instructional day, then it will show the blank, uh, the rounded corners for the first day and the last day of the school, right? And then we have some legends like holiday, winter breaks, and fall break, spring break. All of these legends will be used on the calendar as you post the data. And if there is any submission missing, it will show up like this, on the red color on the date. So you can quickly correct your calendar, submit the date which is missing, and try to see here whether the submission is reflecting on the calendar or not.
I really enjoy this example calendar. It's nice.
All right. So going back to the UI where we clicked on track. So there is this option to certify the calendar. Let's take the calendar which is not certified. So first, let's see how certify all works. If you click on certify all, if you have access to multiple LEAs, you will see here displaying number of LEAs. It will start with one and it will show you all the tracks for single LEA so that you can just go through it. If you don't want to certify any of the track, you can just remove this checkbox or change it, select some of them, and there is this message that you need to click on the checkbox to certify the calendar, right? So on this screen, if I'm selecting all the calendars, that means I'm certifying all the calendars for this LEA and for this LEA for all these schools, right? And the tracks that are submitted. I can click on certify or cancel it. If we cancel this particular message, it will show you the second LEA. So you will get all the LEAs which you are having access to. So as this is a test environment, I have a lot of LEAs attached to one particular user, and that's why it is showing you a lot of them. So I'm just going to cancel them. So this is one of the way to certify all the calendars in bulk.
Did you set up this one user to be on this many LEAs?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's for this, just for the test.
There's only a few users who will actually have that many LEAs.
Yeah, yeah. There is another way to certify the calendar individually, which is inside the view calendar. You see the certify button. You can click on it, and you will see the same certify message, which you can select.
The video is still lagging by a couple of seconds, but I'll tell you what, those red circles were pretty overwhelming when they showed up.
All right. So this is how you certify this individual calendar, and click on certify. And after you certify it, it
Yeah,
changes the
and
status.
it flashed green for a second. I'm assuming that shows that it's saved.
Yeah.
Now it's caught up.
Right. Yeah, so you're talking about this red dates in the red color, right?
That we expected it to show up, but the track that you happen to choose is a track that's missing some descriptors.
Right.
So it's got these little red lights all over it.
Yeah, so these are the submissions which are missing.
Missing descriptors.
Yeah. And also we have some reports for calendar, as Saba mentioned. Can we go through the reports?
Yep, I think that's all we have left.
Okay. So there will be a new menu on the left side where you can click on calendar reports. This Cal 10 report is the verification report, summary report, which is pre-integrity report. I'm just selecting one of the test school here.
Because you pre-prepared data?
Yeah.
This is the one that, the Cal 10's the one that lists all of the days side by side? Oh, there it is.
It has some summary for the calendar, like what is the first day submitted. So this all data is the submitted one, right? It's before integrity is run. So first day of instruction, then 40th and 100th day, and last day of instruction. These are the dates that we submitted in the test environment. And that's why it is showing up in the calendar. Then how many fall break days you submitted, the holidays, instructional days, total number of instructional days, if any late start or early dismissal or other day not in session, spring breaks, teacher only days, and winter breaks. It also has holidays, Independence Day, Veterans Day, and Thanksgiving. Because I submitted only this much data, it is showing up like this. But if we, in the ideal calendar, if we submit other non-instructional days like student late arrival or early
Teacher
dismissal,
in service or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember all of
it will show up all the non-instructional days as well. So this is where we can, apart from the view calendar, this is where you can come and see whether the submitted data is landed properly in AzEDS or not, LEA data or not. Then we have Cal 20 report, which has a pre and post integrity.
Oh, the same school. That's nice.
Yeah, that's the school we have the data for.
And the one that's passed.
Yeah. So you just saw I certified one of the track. So it will show the date certified if it is certified, and then who certified it, and other details like first day, last day, instructional days, teacher only days, holiday, short days, other days, and if what is the integrity status for this particular track. So for the failed ones as well, you can see a lot of the schools. I can show you. So you can go ahead and correct it. Also,
where are we going?
there is a URL change. me load it again. Do you have the calendar URL?
Try pasting.
Yes.
Well, that's lucky. In some ways, it's nice that the QA environment is a little slower than production. It gives us time to keep up with the video. But if you're looking at a white screen, I'll be looking at the same white screen for a couple more seconds.
Okay, so this was district calendar summary report that we were talking about. Now let's move on to the Intake 35 report. This is integrity report specifically for calendar rules, and we have around 20 rules. So we have this specific report for calendar. Let me select some of the school and show you the data for Intake. So this is the school that the track that has error for 90015, which is AOI. As we know, AOI do not submit the calendars.
So you submitted a
Yeah, for the
calendar
test
for
environment.
AOI.
Yeah, to test the error code, I submitted the calendar for AOI, and this is what it is showing. So they can remove their calendar and correct their integrity errors, and then it will pass the integrity. That's it. So calendar, menu, and the report, these are the two things that will be introduced on July 1st. And once you have access, your entity admin can give you the access for certify menu, and you can certify the calendar or view the calendar with that access in AzEDS portal. Anything else you want to mention?
Now we get to look at the terrifying questions.
Okay,
So exciting.
you ready?
Hey, I'll take a softball to start with. Is it now required for us to enter a title of instructional day? Previous, we were told we needed to enter the non-school type days. Yes. That I think I made a quick slide on that one. There is a difference between the old system and the new one. The old system had you describe broadly all the instructional days and then only choose descriptors for the non-instructional days. That doesn't allow a lot of variation. In EdFi, the way they set up everything is a little bit more database-like, so it's easier to just do one descriptor for each day. At the end of the day, the output will be the same because our database with the LEA calendar and common logon would interpret and create the same thing. The difference is we're having your sys create it. So yeah, there's a descriptor for instructional, and then there's descriptors for all of those holidays and teacher service days that you had before. A user called Melody says, I'm a new principal at a charter school and have not yet received access to any of this. And the former principal has left. How do I get myself up so I have access to our school's information? Melody, just to be careful on this one, I'll ask you, could you email the SF analyst team at az.gov, please? The calendar certify permission we assigned to all the superintendents that we have, but if you had a sudden staff turnover, there's no way for me to know immediately. So that one I would ask you to email the SF analyst team at az.gov. And I'll quick show you that on the screen. There it is. There you go, SF analyst team at az.gov. I think this is a question for IT, but it may not be a question yet. An anonymous user says, we have not had success connecting when using the new AzEDS URLs.
Right, so this URL for REST API 4.0 will be enabled in production on July 1st.
Okay, so while
So-
they can configure their sys now,
Yeah.
the first transactions won't even load until July 1st.
Yeah.
That's expected.
Probably,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure some IT staff are going to be working over the weekend to prep for July 1st, so
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's part of the normal plan. This is a very exciting question. If including lunch and study as classes on the student schedule, is it required that attendance be taken? I'm assuming this is a question about last year's Senate Bill 1156 and this year's 1008. On the subject of elementary attendance, I would like to hold that question for a little bit. Have we already discussed attendance for high schoolers during lunch? Study hall is considered a course. Anyway, I'll be sure to include it in the discussion with the Lyle and audit in the coming month, and make sure that we include high school as well as elementary school in our questions about attendance. That said, requirements for taking attendance are in 15901, and whatever we publish is going to adhere as closely to 15901 as we can. So, this question was from all the way back at 907, so I'm assuming I went way too fast to get you to the hot topics and memos. Anonymous user asked, where can we find the instructions? So I'll walk you there one more time. It was the school finance homepage, which was azed.gov/finance. One of the most recent hot topics was the instructional calendar. Wait, a little bigger, please. There you go. And that hot topic had a link to the memos on it. The other way you could get there is from the school. For the top ribbon on our website is the ADE menu. The second ribbon is the specific website menu. So on the lighter blue menu, if you choose memos and 2018, there are 2 memos in there specifically with the word calendar. We've made it into the 50s and 60s though, so 55 was from back in May, just loosely outlining calendar. 65 is from last week and gives instructions on how to certify the calendar. So it's 3-4 pages. That's the one I would print and hand to my superintendent. It's also the one that I emailed your superintendents. Yep, yesterday we sent out an email to the superintendents with 18065 on it.
As well as the first one. I think it's 5-3.
I got an anonymous question saying, why wasn't more notice given in advance of the webinar? If you didn't know, we have school finance webinars every other week. You can find the schedule of them on my website at azed.gov/finance, and it's listed under the training sessions. There's dates for all the upcoming School Finance Fridays and links to it. And once I hire a new analyst, notes from previous ones will be there. This specific one, I'm going to save the video under training videos and under School Finance Friday because Adi did a pretty impressive demo here and I want to save it. So we do our best to be available. But anonymous user asked, we have no calendars to certify. What is wrong? Don't worry, I don't think anything is wrong yet. Once fiscal year 19 has become available to submit, and once Integrity starts running on the 1st, then the calendars should be available to you in the UI. A really, really good question from Cynthia Gonzalez. I'm sorry I went way too fast through my slides earlier. Cynthia asks, as the AzEDS data coordinator, I automatically have access to the calendar tab, but right now I don't have it. Also, will I need to wait until July 1 to enter the calendar as I've already submitted through AD Connect? I'm going to take this as two separate questions. I only recently realized that we had set up the AzEDS calendar permission as a standalone role. So in the coming weeks, we'll also add the calendar view to the standard AzEDS data coordinator report, but in the short term, you can assign it to yourself, and it's called
AzEDS calendar view.
fantastic. It's called AzEDS calendar view. So you go into the entity administrator portal. The role you're looking for includes the phrase AzEDS calendar. So short term, you will have to assign that one to yourself. That was a blind spot for me as we were working through this. The second question Cynthia posted, also, will I need to wait for July 1 because I've already submitted it through AD Connect? If you have already submitted your calendar through the LEA calendar application, I'm very sorry. I did attempt to communicate via school finance memos and this webinar, but as another user has pointed out, those are not always pushed to everybody's inboxes, so they don't necessarily know immediately without checking. But the LEA calendar application was not intended to be used for fiscal year 19, and we only shut it off right now for rollover. So if you already manually entered your calendar, it was only informational, and I'm sorry we won't be using it in AzEDS. When the URL for AzEDS for fiscal year 19 becomes available on July 1st, your SIS should submit whatever you've entered in your SIS to AzEDS. I'm sorry, Cynthia. Newest question from anonymous user. How do you edit a calendar after it's been certified? I noticed in the demo you weren't able to click on the track once it was certified. I will agree with the anonymous user that I did observe that once you hit certify and you tried to click on the track, it wasn't reactive. But I wasn't sure if that was because the QA
it was just a
environment is
test
so
environment.
slow. The QA environment is not half of what production AzEDS is, because
Right.
we put all our resources in production AzEDS, so hopefully your experience won't be as slow as poor Adi's experience just now. But editing a calendar is done via the API and your SIS.
Right.
So even after you certify, you can edit all the way up until 8:31, or I guess until 5 p.m. on 8:31.
And clicking on track is always allowed, even if you certify or not. It's
Yeah.
a view calendar
It was just that
option.
the environment was a little slow.
Right.
Anonymous user asks, and it's a timely question, if I entered my calendar in Common Logon, will it roll over to AD Connect? I'm very sorry if I have not explained it well. If you manually entered your calendar, it will not be used in AzEDS for fiscal year 19. The LEA calendar application where you typed on a screen, either via Common Logon or AD Connect, was used for fiscal years 17 and 18 and was used for SACE. But for fiscal year 19, the only calendar information that we'll be using to check student data is what your SIS submits to AzEDS. Another question, I think, about instructional time and 11:56 and 10:08. Can lunch and recesses be counted as instructional time? For fiscal year 19, for elementary schools, yes. If you go to AzEDS, the Arizona Legislature website, there is a chaptered version of 15901 that you can read with detail. And I'm going to take a minute to walk all the way there because I know I'm not going to have any time this week to do anything other than prepping for fiscal year 19, so it'll be faster if I show you how to get it yourself. So AzLEG. Yeah, sorry, it's habit for me to go to my own webpage, and I do it all day long. If you look, this website does have current statutes on it, but the top is a configuration for each legislative session. Whew. This one I know off the top of my head is 10:08 because I believe somebody informed me maybe 3-4 School Finance Fridays ago. Thank you so much for your help. There it is, Senate Bill 1008. And once, if you scroll down and you can see that the governor signed it, then I skip straight to the document section and I choose the PDF of the chaptered version because I like PDFs. So this one, they light up in different colors, what they've changed about it. So the inserted phrase is, the hours in which a student is scheduled to attend a common school during regular school day shall be included in calculation of ADM. So broadly, I would say yes, the time that a K through 8 student is scheduled to be in the building is instructional time. But the statute is here available for you. There you go. I think we covered this one already. What's the title of the new role in ADE Connect for the instructional calendar? I'm sorry, the video is lagging behind my clicking, but anonymous user asked about the title of the role, and it was
AzEDS calendar view.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I can't keep it in my head. AzEDS calendar view.
And AzEDS calendar certified for certified.
Good. Interesting question. Anonymous user says, in reviewing ARS 15-1042, I did not see a requirement that submission of the calendar was required. Does that mean that non-state aid districts do not need to submit data since they do not receive state aid? Well, on the subject of calendars, I know, I don't want to dig into the statute too much, but yeah, for this one specifically, you're welcome to email schoolfinance@azed.gov. But specifically for instructional calendars, if you are submitting memberships to AzEDS with the expectation that that membership is for a student to receive state aid, then you need to submit an instructional calendar for me to confirm that membership data is clean. And that could be in a tuition arrangement, or it could be a student that you're expecting to be paid directly. I don't know that this is necessarily the correct forum for debating statute. I am reading these questions out of order, so it may be possible that this anonymous user got their answer already. But they asked, when I go to LEA calendar in AD Connect, 2019 is not there for me to add the calendar. What do I need to do? I made a little slide, and it happens, but I may not be explaining well. The calendars are going to be submitted along with your student data. Just like STC moved out of a standalone application and became part of AzEDS, in the same way Calendar moved out of its own standalone application and became part of AzEDS. So anything that you enter into the student information system to be sent to AzEDS gets sent all at once when the new database becomes active July 1. That's how we will get your instructional calendars, via AzEDS and your SIS. Questions about Anonymous user asks, I lost my connection, and I'm not sure if this was already answered. Totally fair. I know I've been having technical problems, honestly, for the past 6 weeks. What's the title of the new role in ADE Connect for the instructional calendar? It's
Can we type it in the slide? One of the slides.
it's okay. I think this will be
It's-
the last time we answer this
okay.
one, but it's
It's AzEDS calendar view.
yep. Anonymous user asks, how do we get access for the the charter estimated count tab in Common Logon? Thank you. This one you will have to go to a specific URL. This one's not in AD Connect, right?
It's an AD Connect, but it takes you to the Common Logon platform.
Oh, fantastic. So this is one that your entity administrator can grant you permission to. It's something like business something. It's not standalone, it's grouped into a role. We might as well go there and
Business Legacy?
it's called something like Business Legacy. So I'm very sorry, you're about to see my own permissions. Wait, let me grab it off the screen for a second. Oh, nice. I'm timing out. That's nice. Self. Oh, the word school finance is in the role. I will find it. It's called... I have chosen the wrong user because I already have all of the school finance permissions assigned. There we go. Business Office and State Aid update. There it is. You get to see my account. I'm so sorry. There you go. It's Business Office and State Aid Update Legacy. And that gives you access to charter estimated counts and LEA calendar, which you don't need anymore. But Business Office and State Aid Update Legacy. And your entity administrator has to assign that to you in AD Connect. That looks like conversation. If we submit to... Ooh, very good question. I think it's a question for Adi. An anonymous user asks, if we submit changes to a track after the calendar has been certified, will the certify button be available to recertify?
No, not for now. So once you certify the calendar,
Yes.
it will be certified.
And then
It
what
is not
happens if I
shown.
change my calendar after that? Like, for example, if I were to delete the calendar and re-add it.
Obviously, after you delete the calendar and add it, you'll have the certify button.
And then, can I make manual changes to the track via the UI?
No. You'll have to submit it through your sys.
A in the weeds question, and I'm going to give it to Adi because I'm still scrolling through the questions. An anonymous user asks, Christmas break states cannot exceed 2 weeks. If Christmas and New Year's Day are part of those days, will the calendar, I'm assuming calendar integrity, accept more than 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. Here is a question that I'm sorry, I don't know 100% of the answer to. Anonymous user asked, what if contacts submitted with the budget have changed? Does another budget need to be submitted? That's one that I will have to go check with Lyle and the budget team. If you would like me to email you the answer to this one,
You can email SF budget
you can
team.
write to the oh, that's true. You can write to the SF budget team at az.gov directly. So that's F like school, F like finance, and then the words budget and team at az.gov. And then certifying a calendar by 7/6. So to go to charter estimated counts and to start working on the first payment of the year, we need calendars in by next Friday. So we'll be checking calendars on that day as part of populating the data for the payment systems. That said, you are able to continue making changes to calendars all the way up until 8/31. Couple other questions about the same. Oh, this one might be a reaction. Is there where an AD connectors charter used to be back? I haven't. And I am assigned all the AD connect user roles. It's not there. This one we found it under my username. It was grouped under business, office, and state aid update legacy because we were expecting to have phased all the way into AzEDS faster, so that's why they were all grouped together and called legacy. I think we got all the questions. Everything else looks like duplicates of questions we've answered. Thank you, Adi and Irvin. I don't think we would have been nearly so prepared without you. And I genuinely appreciate everybody participating today. It was very helpful. And we will see you next July 13th. Very exciting. Friday, July 13th. And in theory, in the next 2 weeks, everything will go smoothly. And we'll upload. And we'll be on track for payment 1 of the new fiscal year.